money from the travelers as selling price of the slave. Then the travelers sold him in Egypt, and this was Allah's favors on him, for the man who bought him was a minister of treasury. He thus did establish Yusuf in the land. And Allah is dominant in His purpose, but most of mankind know not. Surah Yusuf, verse 21. When He decides on something, He causes the means to arise for that purpose which are beyond the creatures by themselves. These things happened before Sayyidina Yusuf alayhi salam attained maturity, as indeed the next verse indicates. That age is 40 years when Allah sends down revelation to His prophets. May blessings and peace of the Lord of the worlds be on them. Scholars differ on the age of maturity, but Allah has made it clear when He has said, until when he attains maturity and reaches 40 years. Surah Ahqaf, verse 15. The Quran then tells us that the wife of the minister who had bought Sayyidina Yusuf alayhi salam and brought him home tried to seduce him. When this man had bought him, he brought him and asked his wife to provide him a goodly lodging, that he might profit them, or they may adopt him as a son. So she seduced him and invited him to do evil. She had bolted the doors before that, but he said, Allah be my refuge. He was a prophet and was descended from the prophets, and Allah protected him from immorality and the wiles of women. He was the most honorable of the respected noble highborns, and belonged to one of the 7 groups of the protected people who are mentioned in Bukhari and Muslim. Abu Hurairah radiyallahu anhu narrates that Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam said, 7 people will be shaded by Allah under His shade on the day of resurrection, when there will be no shade except His. They are a just ruler, a man who remembers Allah in seclusion, and his eyes are flooded with tears, a man whose heart is attached to the masjid when he comes out of it until he returns to it, 2 men who love each other for the sake of Allah and meet and separate for Him, a man who gives charity and keeps it secret so that his left hand does not know what the right hand gives, a youth who is raised in the worship of Allah, and finally, a man whom a charming woman of high position calls, but he says, I fear Allah. In short, she invited him to commit sin with her, but he reminded her that her husband had been good to him. He told her that wrongdoers do not prosper. And certainly she besought him, and he would have besought her had he not seen the proof of his Lord. Surah Yusuf, verse 24. At this point, most of the exegetes cite Judaic traditions, but we have refrained from that, preferring what we have, and it is essential that we believe that Allah kept him away from immorality and protected him from the wiles of the evil woman. Indeed, Allah says, thus was it that we might turn away from him evil and indecency. Surely he was one of our devoted servants. Surah Yusuf, verse 24. He raised himself towards the door to get out of it, while she pursued him. There they encountered her husband. She suddenly changed her tone of expression and accused him of intending indecency with her, and called for imprisoning him and punishing him. She absolved herself of evil intentions. So Sayyidina Yusuf alayhi salam spoke the truth and accused her, because that was the need of the hour. He said, she solicited me against my will. وَشَهِدَ شَاهِدٌ مِّنْ أَهْلِهَا, and a witness from her household bore witness. Surah Yusuf, verse 26. It is said that this witness was an infant in the cradle, but it is also said that he was a man related to her husband or to herself. The witness ruled, If his shirt is torn from fore, then she has spoken the truth, and he is one of the liars. But if his shirt is torn from behind, then she has lied, and he is one of the truthful. Surah Yusuf, verses 26 and 27. In the former case, she would be defending herself and would get hold of his shirt from the fore, while in the latter case, she would be pursuing him and get hold of his shirt from behind. When they saw the shirt split from behind, her husband remarked that it was a guile of women, and he pleaded with Yusuf to turn away from it, meaning that he should not mention it to anyone, for to conceal such affairs is most befitting and laudable. He ordered her to seek forgiveness for her sins from her Lord. Indeed, if a slave repents to Allah, He relents towards him. Although the Egyptians were idol worshippers, they had known that the one who forgives sins or ceases them on that account is Allah, the one who has no partner in that matter. Her husband had seen why she had lost control over herself, and in kindness to her forgave her. But the women of the city, wives of the nobles and daughters of the chiefs, ridiculed her for her behavior and denounced her for craving indecency with her slave and her extreme love for him who was not equal in rank. He was one of the several slaves they had. When she heard of that, she invited them to her house and arranged a feast for them. She presented in the food every item that needed to be cut with a knife, like citron, etc. Each of the guests had a knife before her. She then called Sayyidina Yusuf alayhi salam. He came before them, a personification of beauty. When they saw him, they exclaimed that he was great. They had not imagined such beauty in a son of Sayyidina Adam alayhi salam. They kept praising him, and each of them desired him for herself, while the knives in their hand were moving to and fro. They exclaimed, Allah blameless, this is not a mortal. This is none else than a noble angel. Surah Yusuf, verse 31. The hadith of Al-Isra tells us of the words of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Then I passed by Yusuf, and indeed, he is given a large portion of beauty. See Muslim Hadith 213 and Ahmad Hadith 148. Suhaili and others have stated that he had half of the beauty of Sayyidina Adam alayhi salam, for he was created by Allah with his own hands, and he blew into him of his spirit. So, Yusuf had half of the beauty of Sayyidina Adam, while Adam alayhi salam had the limits of beauty and was extremely handsome. Those who enter paradise will have the beauty of Sayyidina Adam alayhi salam. The wife of the minister then pointed out to her woman guests that this was the one for whom they blamed her. I ventured to win him over, but he did not submit. Now, if he does not do as I say, he will be imprisoned and be one of the lowly. The other women sided with her and tried to persuade him to submit to his mistress, but he refused to oblige and was vehement in his refusal. He was a descendant of the prophets, and he beseeched Allah, saying, My Lord, prison is dearer to me than to which these women call me, and if you turn not away their guile from me, then I shall incline towards them and become one of the ignorant. Surah Yusuf, verse 33. He meant to say, if you leave me to myself, then I am weak and helpless. I cannot earn for myself profit or loss except what you wish for me. I am weak unless you strengthen me and protect me. So Allah saved him and removed their guile from him and caused them to imprison him for a time. They hoped to show thereby that Sayyidina Yusuf alayhi salam was guilty of seducing her. Besides, They had heard Yusuf himself desire to get away from them in this manner. The Sufis conclude from this, and the Shawafir report from them. It is part of chastity that one becomes scarce. 2 young men were there in prison with him. They were much impressed with Sayyidina Yusuf alayhi salam. They observed him worship Allah with great devotion and deal very kindly with fellow men. His words and deeds were worthy of praise. Each of these men saw a dream one night, and they related their dreams to Sayyidina Yusuf alayhi salam and asked him to interpret that for them. He assured them that he would do as they said, but before that, he preached to them the lessons of unity of God. He said that he was a believer in the oneness of Allah, following the creed of his forefathers, Ibrahim, Ishaq, and Yaqub alayhimus salam. He asserted to them that it was not for them to associate anyone with Allah, and that belief was itself one of the bounties of Allah on them and on the people, but most of them were ungrateful. He then invited them to believe in the unity of Allah and called upon them to refrain from worshipping anyone besides Allah. He impressed upon them the futility of worship of idols, belittling them, that is, the idols. He asked them, O my 2 fellow prisoners, are diverse lords better, O Allah the One, the Omnipotent? Those whom you worship besides Allah are nothing but names that you have named, you and your fathers. Allah has sent down no authority concerning them. The judgment is for none but Allah. Surah Yusuf, verses 39 to 40. Allah is one who does what He chooses. He guides whom He wishes and leads astray whom He wills. He has commanded that you worship none except Him, and that alone is the straight religion. He then explained to them what their dreams meant. Of one of them he said that he would serve wine to his master, while the other would be crucified, and birds would peck at his head. Thus is decreed the matter concerning which you inquired. Surah Yusuf, verse 41. It says in a hadith, the dream hovers above a man as long as it is not interpreted. When it is interpreted, it transpires. Then he said to the one he had deemed would be spared, Remember me to your Lord. But the devil caused him to forget to remind his master about him. So he continued to stay in prison for some more years. This is the evidence that it is allowed to adopt different means for achievement of one's objective, and that is not a denial of reliance of Allah. The number of years he stayed in prison could be anything up to 9 years. Anyway, this continued until the king had a dream, and he related it to his people. They not only couldn't interpret it, they also described his dream as medleys of nightmares that have no explanation. This dream became a means of release to Sayyidina Yusuf alayhi salam from the prison with great respect and honor, and in a very dignified manner. The man whom Sayyidina Yusuf alayhi salam had asked to remind the king about him suddenly recalled his promise to Sayyidina Yusuf alayhi salam when he heard the king's dream. There is wisdom in Allah's doings, and indeed there was one in this too. He told them of Sayyidina Yusuf alayhi salam and was sent to him to get an interpretation. He related to Sayyidina Yusuf alayhi salam the dream of the king. Yusuf, O you truthful one, explain to us in regard to 7 fat cows, which 7 lean ones are devouring, and 7 green ears of corn, and 7 others dry, that I may return to the people, so that they may know. Surah Yusuf, verse 46. The people of the book say, however, that the king, when he was told about Yusuf alayhi salam by this man, summoned Yusuf alayhi salam and learned from him what his dream meant. But this is wrong. Only that which Allah has narrated in the Quran is true and correct. When that man, that is the ex-prisoner, related the dream, Sayyidina Yusuf alayhi salam did not waste any time and forwarded no condition or demand, but explained it according to his knowledge. He told them that they would sow for 7 years as usual, but they should leave what they reap in the year, except for a little that they may eat. They would then face 7 hard years in which they would consume all they had stored, except what they preserved. Then after that, they would see a year of prosperity and rain, and in which they would press wines, grapes, olives, and other fruits. The interpretation suggests perfect knowledge and intelligence of Sayyidina Yusuf alayhi salam. When the king observed that Sayyidina Yusuf alayhi salam was deeply knowledgeable and highly intelligent, he asked that he be brought to him. He wished to place him among his special people. But when the king's messenger arrived to get him, Sayyidina Yusuf alayhi salam desired that before anything else he should be absolved of all accusations, his innocence should be confirmed. He asked the messenger to return to the king and ask him about the women who had cut their hands, for indeed his lord was well aware of their guile. When the women were asked about it, they confessed. They said, Allah blameless, we know not of any evil against him. Surah Yusuf, verse 51. The wife of the minister also confessed, now the truth has come to light. I solicited him against his will, and surely he is of the truthful. Verse 51. This, that he may know that I betrayed him not in secret, and that Allah guides not the guile of the betrayers. Verse 52. It is said that these words were spoken by Sayyidina Yusuf alayhi salam to assure the minister that he had resisted seduction. But it is also said that all these words were spoken by Zulaykha, the wife of the minister, so that her husband might know that she had not committed the real offense. The immoral act was not perpetrated. A large number of later exegetes subscribe to this opinion, but Ibn Jarir and Ibn Abi Hatim present only the first idea. And I exculpate not my soul. Surely human soul incites to evil, except of one on whom my Lord has mercy. Surely my Lord is forgiving, merciful. Surah Yusuf, verse 53. It is said that this is Yusuf alayhi salam's speech. It is also said that Zulaykha had spoken these words, and this opinion is more evident and stronger, but Allah knows best. Then the king asked for Sayyidina Yusuf alayhi salam to be brought to him, so that he might retain him for himself as one of the chief men. When he had spoken to him, he said to him, surely you are today with us, firmly established and trusted. Verse 54. Sayyidina Yusuf alayhi salam demanded that the king place him over the storehouses of the land. He told him that he knew this well and was a good keeper of stores. This is proof that a man may ask for a position he is able to discharge well. Sayyidina Yusuf alayhi salam was 30 years old at that time. He married a noble lady, but it is also said that when the minister died, the king married him to his widow, Zulaykha. It transpired that she was a virgin because her dead husband was impotent. She gave Sayyidina Yusuf alayhi salam 2 sons. He became very powerful in Egypt and came to be loved and admired by the people. He had mastery in the land wherever he wished. Indeed, Allah bestows His mercy on whomsoever He wills. The Quran reminds us here, and certainly the reward of the hereafter is better for those who believe and fear Allah. Surah Yusuf, verse 57. Allah tells us then that famine in the land drove the brothers of Sayyidina Yusuf alayhi salam to Egypt. He was supervising over these affairs when they came there, and although he recognized them, they had not. Obviously, they had not expected such a strong progress for him. When he had provided them with their provision, a camel load, as was the portion of everyone, he asked them to bring their brother too, and he had got them to affirm through questioning, "How many are you?" "We are 12 men. One of us has gone away from us, and his real brother is with our father. We believe in Allah. If you come next year, bring him with you to us." He added, that which was revealed to Ibrahim that I and Ismail and Ishaq. He also told Yaqub that if they did not bring him, they would not get anything from Surah Al-Imran, verse they 84. Promised to entice away his father from him. Read the word Al-Asbaq. He instructed his men to return the merchandise they had brought, but their argument is not strong in their sacks. The word Al-Asbaq, it is said that he hoped that they would return to him when they see their things. The verses of Surah Yusuf cited they may not have anything to bring by the exegetes when they came again. That Sayyidina Yusuf alayhi when they returned home, home, they in told their father that in which 11 stars and the sun and the moon prostrated before him. Take their brother with the 11 stars represented his brothers, and the sun and the merchandise was returned to them. His dream overawed him. Allow their brother when he awoke, he narrated it to his father, so that who recognized it extra as a sign for the that family. He would rise to a high rank in this life, and in the perceived the smell of Sayyidina Yusuf to conceal his dream from his brothers, and did not part with him even a while. That is why some of the narrations that of the companions would tell us until they gave him a pledge in the name of Allah expectations that they would bring him back, them, unless for every they were blessed person is envy. When they had done that, he said, Allah his father outlined the interpretation of the dream to him. He then commanded them not to enter the city from one gate. He hid the dream, but they would select him from different and shower his mercy on him. It is said that he would teach him to preserve the interpretation of dreams and sayings, because they were of goodly appearance and handsome. He would also perfect his bounties on him. It is also said with revelation that if they dispersed in this manner, Yaqub, they had a greater chance of finding out about Yusuf. This they would attain through Yusuf, the best of this life, but the first and the next is more as likely. Indeed Ibrahim and Ishaq yet had I cannot avail you anything against Allah. A hadith is related from Jabir when they came in the presence of Sayyidina Yusuf approached Rasulullah with Binyamin and asked, he made him sit next to him and confided with him that he prostrated before Yusuf. He instructed him to keep the secret and told him quiet a while he would keep Jibreel alayhi came through a scheme he had devised. And he got his men to plant his cup. Will you believe if I tell you the names? When these men were returning after getting their measures, and Binyamin was with them, recounted the men of Sayyidina Yusuf alayhi salam that they were the saying that their king's drinking cup was missing. In the verses that follow those that they were above, not thieves. Allah tells us about the jealousy of his brothers would not let them go without searching their sacks. In getting their father it was agreed to go with them that the one with whom the cup was found and in throwing him would be in the bottom of a well, while others may go. Their father was apprehensive. The cup was found in the sack of Binyamin, and a wolf he was detained. Him. And this was because Allah had willed it not be in this manner when they were together. There is wisdom behind his decisions. With their father, and he finally allowed when the brothers had despaired of getting him released, hardly were they out of sight of their father that his brother before him had stolen and as he had done, and agreed to hurl him to the bottom of a well. It is said that he had smashed the gods of his maternal grandfather and assured him that his mother had stolen from him, and would inform when they had no hope that Binyamin would be released, while they would the eldest of them told the rest fear him that he would not go with them after they had dropped him in the well, and reminded them that they had given a pledge to their father in regard to Binyamin, crying for their brother. He would not stay there until Allah decided the case, or his father commanded him to go. Do not let the cry of a complainant He advised them to go and inform their father that his son had stolen, and he could verify from the caravan that it might be they were traveling to deceive their father. But They told him that a wolf had eaten Yusuf while
Nay,
they were playing,
your minds
and
have
he was
enticed
alone.
you to invent the matter.
They wondered that he would not
For
believe
me,
them because he was
goodly
not willing to
patience.
trust them
Surah
in the first
Yusuf,
place.
verse 83.
They had stained
He
the
prayed
shirt
to
with
Allah
blood of a goat,
that all of
which
them
they
may
had
return
slaughtered,
to him,
to show
including
that
Yusuf,
a wolf had eaten
Binyamin,
Yusuf,
and
but
Rubail,
they had
that is,
forgotten
the
to
one who
tear
had
off his
remained
shirt.
behind.
The
He
dread
then
of a
turned
liar
away from
is
them and
forgetfulness.
remembered Yusuf alayhi salam, and
Their
felt
father was
very
not
sad.
convinced, and
The
he
memory
asserted,
came back to him.
Nay,
Your
his
minds
eyes
have
became
enticed
white
you
with
to
crying,
invent the matter,
and he was deeply grieved.
For me,
goodly
his sons
patience,
warned him that
and
he would
Allah
kill
is
himself
he
thinking
whose
of
help
Yusuf,
is ever there
but
to seek
he said,
against that
I
which you
complain of my
describe.
grief and my sorrow
Surah Yusuf,
only to Allah,
verse 18.
and I know
Meanwhile,
from Allah
Sayyidina
that
Yusuf alayhi
which you
salam
know not.
waited in the
Surah
bottom of the
Yusuf,
well for
verse
Allah's
86.
help. Some
He assured
travelers
them
came
that he was not
way, and they
complaining
sent
to
some
them
of them
or
to
to
fetch
anyone
water
else
for them.
of the creatures, but
When
he was
one of them
complaining
dropped
to
a
Allah
bucket to collect
alone.
water,
He
Sayyidina
emphasized
Yusuf alayhi
that
salam
Allah would
clung
open
to the
out a
rope
way for him
and was thus
and
brought
remove
out.
him from his
As they
predicament.
saw him, they exclaimed,
He was confident
good news,
that the dream of Yusuf
they
alayhi
concealed
salam
him as
would
part
be
of their
fulfilled,
merchandise.
and he and all of them
But Allah
would
was
prostrate
aware
before
of what
Yusuf
they did.
alayhi salam.
Surah Yusuf, verse
He then
19.
instructed them to go ahead
He was well aware
and search
when his
for
brothers
Yusuf
played mischief
and
with him,
Binyamin,
and when these
and
people
not
disguised
despair
him as a
of
slave
the mercy of
and
Allah.
part of their merchandise.
For
But
none despairs
Allah
of
did not
Allah's
alter his
mercy
condition.
except the disbelieving
He had
people.
justification for that.
Verse 87.
And he would let the boy
He
play
is
an
sure to
important
extricate
role
his
in the
slave
destination
from
of
difficulty.
Egypt.
So
the brothers of
Yusuf
Yusuf alayhi salam
returned to
that
him.
the travelers had
They
taken him.
requested for fresh
So they
provisions
went to them
and for the
complained
release
that
of
the boy was
Binyamin,
their slave,
and they
who had
related
run
to
away
him their
from
plight.
them, and thus
Sayyidina Yusuf
extracted a
alayhi
pork
salam observed their pitiable condition and felt much sympathy for them. He could not control his emotions and suddenly called out, Do you know what you did to Yusuf and his brother when you were ignorant? Verse 89. They were taken aback. They looked at him again and again, but could not recognize him. Finally, they asked, Are you indeed Yusuf? He assured them that indeed he was Yusuf, and with him was his brother. The second statement was for emphasis and to counter their jealousy. In this way, he asserted gratefully, Allah had favored them, and indeed those who fear Allah and persevere find that He does not waste their reward. They conceded that Allah had chosen him above them and confessed that they had been wrong. But Yusuf was generous. He said, No reproach shall be this day on you. Verse 92. May Allah forgive you. He is the most merciful of the merciful. Sayyidina Yusuf alayhi salam commanded his brothers to take the shirt he had on him and throw it on his father's eyes, and that his eyesight would be restored with the permission of Allah. This was the symbol of nobility, evidence of prophethood, and a great miracle. He advised that then they should, all of them, come to Egypt to goodness and happiness. They should bring their families along. Just as the caravan left Egypt, their father perceived Sayyidina Yusuf alayhi salam's scent. He told his family of that and added that they might think of him as having grown old and speaking insensibly. If you think not, I am doting. And indeed, they say to him that he was in his old era. Then when the bearer of glad tidings came, he laid it, that is Yusuf's shirt, on his face, so that he became sighted once again. Verse 96. He reminded them on that he had been telling them that he knew from Allah what they did not know. He had been telling them that Yusuf would rejoin them, and they would all be together once again. They said, O our father, ask forgiveness of our sins for us, for surely we have been sinners. Surah Yusuf, verse 97.
His sons asked Sayyidina Yaqub
सुबह
alayhi
8 बजे,
salam to seek forgiveness of
दिन
Allah
के
for
पौने
them.
12 बजे,
They had intended to
दोपहर
repent to
पौने 3
Allah
बजे,
before they had
रात
done their wrong
पौने
deed.
8 बजे,
So Allah caused them to
रात
seek
पौने
forgiveness
11
at
बजे,
this stage.
रात
Their father
11 बजे,
agreed and assured them that he would ask forgiveness for them of his Lord. According to Ibn Jarir, Umar radiallahu anhu was coming to the masjid and heard someone pray, "O Allah, you called me, so I responded. You commanded me, so I obeyed. And this is Sahar, that is dawn, so forgive me." He recognized the voice as coming from the house of Abdullah bin Mas'ud radiallahu anh. So he asked him about it. He said, Yaqub alayhi salam deferred seeking forgiveness for his sons at this time.